Hello, my name is Christopher Badger, barrister at Six Pump Court, and welcome to the third edition of our Environmental Law News Bulletin, brought to you in association with LexisNexis. In this bulletin, we look at the prospect of a new Environment Act, an unprecedented joint report on air quality, and the call for evidence set out in the Spring Statement to tackle plastic waste. At a meeting on the 1st of March, Michael Gove conceded that the 25-year Environment Plan is not a perfect document. He also stated that he absolutely gets the need for a nature law to ensure that the objectives in the plan are met. This leaves those with an interest in the environment in a tantalising position. The prospect of a new Environment Act brings with it the possibility of legislation directed at setting a range of targets and milestones with a view to actually improving nature in a manner similar to the Climate Change Act 2008, rather than simply having legislation that identifies a regulatory system of checks and balances, imposing penalties for breaches, but without any tangible targets for improvement. The problem is that it will take time for such legislation to be put in place, certainly beyond March 2019, the date at which we leave the EU, and the prospect of having a bespoke act on the horizon raises concerns that the government will struggle to get sufficient measures in place on Brexit Day in order to ensure equivalence in environmental protection, or at least the veneer of equivalence. The government has already rejected calls to enshrine environmental principles into UK law, as recently proposed by peers in an amendment to the Withdrawal Bill. Importantly, although the government has already promised to consult this year on the functions, remit and powers of a new environmental watchdog, as well as on the nature, scope and content of a new policy statement of environmental principles, it had originally been proposed that this consultation would take place at the start of this year. Now, no date has been given other than to say that it will be at some point this year. The risk is that we may end up with a hastily concocted halfway house of a national environmental watchdog in March 2019, justified on the back of a promise for an all-encompassing wonder of a new Environment Act. The alternative possibility would be some form of continuing role for the European Commission, but that prospect looks incredibly unlikely in the present climate. DEFRA are swamped with the matters relating to Brexit. They really need to get on, though, with this consultation. The joint inquiry held by 4 select committees produced its report this week, entitled Improving Air Quality. It is unprecedented for the select committees to join forces in this way, and it's important for emphasising the cross-cutting nature of the issue. The report represents the combined views of the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, Environmental Audit, Health and Social Care and Transport committees. The concern expressed is that the government is not acting quickly enough, which adds more political weight and pressure to the legal pressure coming from the succession of successful court challenges by Client Earth. There's a call to provide more financial support to local authorities and to bring forward the date from 2040 by which manufacturers must end the sale of conventional petrol and diesel cars, in line with more ambitious commitments in other countries. But they also emphasise that the public health crisis is about more than just nitrogen dioxide emissions. One interesting headline is the call for a new Clean Air Act to set out the government's regulatory course, including whether to adopt World Health Organization air quality guidelines for all air pollutants, including sulfur dioxide, particulate matter and ozone, and not just nitrogen dioxide. Unfortunately, the proposal for a right to clean air is lacking in real detail. The Minister's response to the committee's questions reveals the government's attitude. She argued that new legislation was not needed to support legal redress on air quality, and insisted that there is absolutely no diminution in any sense of any target or of our ambition in light of Brexit. Translation: we have existing powers that can be used by councils, and the focus now should be on what is happening at that more local level. What the statement did address was a call for evidence to tackle the problem of plastic littering and the threat that is posed to the marine environment and how the tax system can tackle the issue of single-use plastics. In addition, £20 million is to be diverted from existing departmental budgets to businesses and universities in order to stimulate new thinking and rapid solution to the problem of plastic waste. The government states that it wants to ensure that the right incentives are in place to encourage sustainable behaviours and drive technological progress, which will in turn create new jobs and prosperity. The recent introduction of the single-use plastic carrier bag charge has demonstrated that even small economic change can alter both consumer and retailer behaviour to encourage reuse and reduction of waste, to the tune of around 9 billion bags a year. It's notable that the government calls the 5p charge an incentive. Whilst the call for evidence states that the government will consider all options, the smart money is on some form of financial levy imposed on those that place plastic products and packaging on the market, in a similar way to costs imposed on those that place portable batteries or electrical goods on the UK market. Other interested groups have called for pressure to be placed on supermarkets and food giants to cut down the amount of throwaway plastic that is put into circulation, thereby influencing consumer behaviour and choices. What will be really interesting is whether a truly effective proposal can be found that will make real progress towards eliminating avoidable plastic waste. Thank you for tuning in for this Environmental Law News Bulletin. For more information on any of these stories, please contact Six Pump Court or my colleagues at LexisNexis. We'll be back in April with a look at some of the month's key legal updates.